All right, today we're going to be talking about the Lost Explorers. This is probably going to be the third boss in the Venomous Abyss raid. It is a council boss, very similar to Soul Hunters from Manaforge or Paladins from Voidspire. It is three bosses. Each one has a unique ultimate that you have to deal with as sort of an intermission. So in that regard, it's more like Soul Hunters. The first thing we're going to talk about here is the movement. The reason this is so important is Gebbo walks around the room in a circle. He cannot be tanked. He walks at a fixed speed around the room in a circle for the whole fight. The other two are tankable. They can be moved as much as you want by the tanks. They have to be swapped, typical of a council boss. They can never be stacked. They can never be three together. They have to be at least 30 yards apart from each other. So there are two trains of thought in my mind, on how this is going to be dealt with. There is a mover strat and there's a no mover strat. So the mover strat would be basically staying behind Gebbo's movement the entire time, rotating with him as he rotates around the arena, right? So as Gebbo goes around, you're staying at least 30 yards behind him, kind of trailing him. Or even like mirroring his movements completely, like 180 degrees around the arena, right? That would be the mover strat. And anytime you wanted Gebbo to be cleaved, because they also die at the same time, you would just stack one of the bosses on top of him, tank the other one on the other side, and rotate as Gebbo rotates, following him, right? So that's the mover strat. Let's talk about what the no mover strat would look like. This is basically Gebbo's moving. You are kind of staying in the same area for the entire fight. Anytime Gebbo is going to rotate into you, one of the tanks would pull a boss away, most likely Scroll Sage Iku. So you would pull the Scroll Sage away, and Gebbo would rotate into Nama. You can move a little bit with him too if you want here, like maybe like do like a small arc like this and then reset back to here. But basically you would play around this area the whole time. Gebbo would come in, and then as soon as Gebbo leaves this area, you would bring Iku back in, right? And then they would be stacked up again. Obviously, this isn't ideal for cleave for the entirety of the fight. So there are going to be moments when you want to do this no mover. And then there's going to be moments where you want to be following Gebbo as well. It's definitely going to be a mixture of both. But finding the right balance to optimize your damage is going to be key, right? So let's go into the mechanics now. So starting from the beginning, so each boss has two mechanics each. One being a generic ability that they use throughout the entire fight, including during their ultimates, and the other one being their ultimate, right? So two mechanics per boss. So the first one comes from First Mate Nama. It is a frontal cone of shells. This is only baited on melee players. Ranged players cannot bait this. So if you're ever stacking with this boss, melee want to be aiming this away from the group and towards the edge, right? So they always want to be playing sort of on the edge of the arena anytime First Mate Nama is in the cleave stack. So you can see that here in this VOD. He's actually away, but it is baited on a ranged player, or a melee player, sorry. And it's basically three turtle shells that fly out in a cone, just like Mario Kart. And if they touch you, they stun you. So that'll happen periodically throughout the entire fight. Keep track of timers. There could be some bad overlaps with other mechanics, especially because it can happen during the ultimates. So it's something to keep your eye out for. The second one is Blink Nova. This is from Scroll Sage Iku. This targets a random ranged player, only ranged, and puts a fall off AoE on them. So that's this right here, this blue fall off indicator. Scroll Sage Iku will blink to that player, do a large hit of damage to that player, and fall off damage to the rest of the raid. This is a very large hit on the person targeted, likely needing a wall or an external just to live, at least on PTR. So whoever gets this mechanic as a range, you need to be very vocal if you do not have a defensive to use on this mechanic. If you do not have a defensive, you have to call for an external. This is the only individual large damage hit basically in the entire fight. So you're really looking for you to use your wall on this mechanic if you get it as a ranged. Melee, you can be more flexible with your defensive, but ranged, this is what you're looking to defensive. Last basic mechanic is from Gebbo. It is throw junk. He targets random players in the raid, puts these brown swirls on the ground, and it spawns a box. That it does it in sets of 4. I think it's 8 total boxes though, so 2 sets of 4. Anytime you step on one of these boxes, it gives you a bleed that's like 20k every 2 seconds or something, and it does a 250k raid hit. So that is mythic only, the raid hit. So on heroic, it only puts the bleed on you. It's actually a larger bleed on heroic because there's no raid damage. It's like 60k, but on mythic, it does a large 250k raid hit as well as putting a 25k bleed on whoever steps on the box, and it does stack. So we're going to be looking to stagger these box breaks. It wasn't really a thing on PTR. They kind of just broke them all at once because the damage wasn't significant, but they buffed the raid damage from these box breaks. So it's definitely probably going to be a thing that we have to stagger the breaks just to make sure we don't accidentally kill people. Inside one of these boxes is going to be a fish. That fish is an item on the ground that you have to click to pick up. It gives you an extra action button, and that extra action button can be used on one of the bosses to trigger their ultimate. Now, when you trigger the ultimate is based on this 4th boss that's just kind of ethereally around. It's actually this red guy in the middle of the room in this VOD. He's not targetable, but he has a boss frame. His name is like Morzahai or something. Yeah, Morzahi, however you say that. He has an energy bar that can be tracked on boss frames. You have to feed a fish to one of the bosses before it hits 100, or they enrage and we wipe. So we're looking to milk this a little bit, but around 94, 95 energy, we're going to feed a fish to one of the bosses to trigger their ultimate. Likely the first ultimate that we're going to trigger is Gebbo's ultimate. Currently, there's an ability called Fishy Feedback in the Dungeon Journal that does like a 600k raid hit when you feed the fish. So it's going to do a big hit. Make sure we're topped. Make sure you're healthy when we feed the fish because it's gonna hurt. So, okay, let's get into the first ultimate. The first ultimate is Trader Gebbo's. It is a bomb plus a mushroom. So he's going to spawn a bomb somewhere around the room. This bomb is going to explode and cause a giant fire wave. This fire wave, you can see the bomb here. We have to cross it, and the way to cross it is this mushroom that you can see under the nameplates right here. This mushroom spawns on a random ranged player. So ranged players are the only ones who can bait the spawn of this mushroom. On Mythic, there's only 1. On Heroic, there's like 3 mushrooms to use. When the first person steps on this, you have about 3 seconds before it despawns. It like spawns a swirly as soon as you step on it, and it will explode under your feet and go away. So since there's only 1 on Mythic, we're really looking to time everyone hitting this mushroom at the same time so everyone can get over the fire wave. Now you see here there's an overlap with the basic mechanic, which is the boxes. Obviously these boxes aren't going to have a fish in it because it's happening during the ultimate, right? But you still have to deal with them because if they aren't stepped on, they do explode after a certain amount of time. So because they did Gebbo's ultimate first, we get this bad overlap of box spawns into fire wave with the mushroom. So what you're looking to do here is stand away from the mushroom, bait the box spawns, and walk onto the mushroom. Now, this overlap only occurs if you do this ultimate first. So let's say on live, they decide to do a different ultimate order. This overlap might not happen, right? So we really need to be looking at what our bad overlaps are going to be based on the strategy that we pick. Now, assuming this is the strategy we pick, we're going to have this overlap of the boxes spawning as the mushroom spawns, and we need to stand away from the mushroom and then move onto it after the boxes spawn. You see, they're all going to go at the same time, jump over the wave, and they're safe. Now, as soon as they land, there is a shell toss coming from one of the bosses. So the melee are looking to bait the shell toss away from the range towards the edge of the room. And at the same time, there's going to be another mushroom spawn for the next bomb that's going to happen immediately after. So what's happening is they're jumping the wave here. Melee are immediately looking to bait that shell toss on the edge of the room, and ranged are going towards the direction of movement out into the middle of the room to bait the next mushroom to make movement a little bit easier, right? So that's that ultimate. It happens twice during the ultimate, the wave, and then you're done. Next ultimate is First Mate Nama. His ultimate is a lot easier than the mushroom. Honestly, the mushroom and the fire wave is the hardest ultimate. This one is probably the easiest. Basically, the way it works is 3 players are targeted with AoE indicators. These brown AoE indicators. He's going to jump one after the other sequentially based on closest to furthest. So he's going to go closest, then middle, and then last. And these soaks do not give you a debuff that makes you take more damage from the second soak or anything like this. Think about first boss Maniforge, how there was the slam mechanic that knocked you back from the center, and you wanted to get back into it to keep soaking to minimize the damage output on people who were soaking, right? If you were strong, you wanted to soak it as much as possible. Things like AMS for DK is super strong here. It absorbs the damage, but you kind of don't really get hurt at all. It's the same thing here, except it's 3 soaks instead of all coming from the same soak. So you want to actually line these up in the direction that we're moving. They actually angled it a little bit more towards the middle of the room, which I kind of like because it keeps this area open for our movement. So they're angling it towards the middle, and then we can keep using this line afterwards because these actually drop crap on the ground. So everyone's going to line up. If you're strong, you're getting in this first soak. If you're super weak and can only take 1, maybe you're in this back soak, but you're looking to soak as many of these as possible. And we will make assignments for it, so it's not like a question of who's in what soak, right? But you're going to see it's going to knock. This guy should have gone the other way, but basically people are getting knocked back into each soak as it goes off. And then this happens twice as well. Every ultimate, the mechanic happens twice, and then it's over. So that's that mechanic. The last one is called Frostfire Volley. We're watching XD here, and they decided to go Mushroom, Frostfire, and then the Mighty Thud mechanic. But it's kind of just depends on what happens on live. I'm planning for Mushroom, Mighty Thud, and then Frostfire. The way Frostfire works is 5 ranged are targeted with an element, and 5 melee are targeted with an element. It puts a giant circle on you. It will drop a puddle of that element, and it will give you a debuff when you drop the puddle. To clear that debuff, you walk onto another element. So if you're ice, you walk on fire. If you're fire, you walk on ice, and it cleanses your debuff and it clears the puddle off the ground. So you'll see here that all the melee are getting the ice, all of the ranged are getting the fire. They're spreading out. There's a lot of ways you can do this. They did more of like a circle method around the boss. I'm thinking more of like a line, like we're lining up and then just walking across to your person. But it really isn't that hard. It doesn't really matter the way you do it, as long as you can find a partner to clear their puddle with quickly. So you see here, the tank got the ice. He's going to walk to his right and clear the fire. And the evoker's walking left, clearing the ice. An important thing to note here is you can overlap them, right? You saw there that they overlapped the ice and fire. However, you cannot overlap on top of another player. If the tank here had overlapped his circle over the evoker, it would have been an instant wipe. That's an instant wipe mechanic. It does like 1,000,000 raid damage to everyone. You cannot overlap with another player inside your circle. You can do small overlaps like this, but you cannot overlap the actual player in the other circle, or we insta-wipe. Okay, so that is the last ultimate mechanic, and the other thing to mention is, again, look at how these first 3 mechanics are going to play out in your ultimates. How are you baiting? When and how are you baiting these shell spins to be safe? Where are you placing these blink novas relative to the movement strategy that you pick? And then how are you assigning these throw junk soaks to make sure that you're staggering, you're placing them well, like for the mushroom mechanic that we mentioned earlier, and really just identifying bad overlaps.